reflections of God's love. Jesus grew up in a village called Nazareth in the district of Galilee. Thus what he was said through the prophets was fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene. He also became known as the son of the carpenter, and the carpenter from Nazareth. It was there in Nazareth that Joseph, Jesus' earthly father, practiced diligently his trade as a carpenter. As a boy, Jesus loved the smell of wood as Joseph worked. He enjoyed trickling the sawdust and shavings through his fingers. He begged his father to let him help, and as soon as he was old enough, Joseph taught him how to use the tools of a carpenter, such as a saw, hammer, and an axe. He taught him how to make many fine things, such as furniture, doors, and fence posts. As Jesus grew into boyhood, he became big and strong and was unbelievably knowledgeable. In many ways, he was like most other children. But there was something different, something special about him. No one ever saw him in a bad mood or grumpy. He never seemed to boast or quarrel or fight or tell lies. Nor did he do silly things. He loved best to hear the Old Testament stories. And Jesus was loved by all. God's grace reflected in everything that he said and did. As he worked in the carpentry shop, he learned his father's trade and became an accomplished craftsman. He also learned many lessons at home and at the synagogue school. Growing up in the Jewish faith, scriptures were learned by heart, quoting the laws that God gave his people, such as honor thy father and thy mother. The rabbi drew the letters of the Hebrew alphabet on wax and with stylus. Jesus also followed the law by listening to his parents, Mary and Joseph, and willingly obeying them.
Joseph? Jesus? You must be a little thirsty. I thought perhaps you might like to take a break and enjoy a drink of water.
Yes.
Thank you, Mother.
Son, I was just reflecting on how you always enjoy journeying to Jerusalem with your father and me to the festivals of Passover every year in the spring.
And I remember your delight when you first saw Jerusalem. The great wall, golden in the sunshine, the shining temple. You were only 16 years old. But the services lasted the entire week. When we were packed and ready to go home, you could not be found. We were worried. We were very sick. I thought you were with me, but your mother thought you were with me.
Oh, yes. I remember that, Father. I was in the temple, sitting among the Jewish scholars. What I liked the most was to join in the Sabbath meeting for prayer and to hear the Word of God read and explained by the teachers. And then, talking with them and discussing the meaning of God's law. It was very exciting. I have always enjoyed doing that.
And when we returned, you wanted to know everything about the priests and their garments, their worship, and their sacrifices in the temple in Jerusalem.
Yes, I did. And Mother, you taught me what God had done in days gone by. And I enjoyed reading about Abraham, Moses, and even King David. I also enjoyed reading the Psalms and what the prophets said.
My son, I know that God is blessing you right now with his love and care in a very special way.
Lord.
It seemed that Joseph died while Jesus was still young because Jesus remained in Nazareth to provide for the family until he was about 30 years old. So Jesus grew up to be a man working in the carpenter shop.
Here begins the wonderful story of Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God, as a man. Here begins his introduction to the harsh religious world of his day. With this preparation now over, his public baptism by John the Baptist, his 40 years, 40 days, and 40 nights of fasting, and the conquering of the three major temptations of the devil in the wilderness, his public ministry began.
Repent, 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 I say, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Repent.
He began to teach and to seek out his first disciples. Three fishermen, Simon and James and John, along with their father Zebedee, were drying their nets in the sun and cleaning their fishing boats that they had hauled onto the shore after a night of fishing.
I wonder where Andrew is. I have not seen him for a while, and it will soon be time to mend the net for tonight's fishing. I hope he will hurry and get here.
Simon continued to work on the boat, and as he thought about his brother Andrew, his mind drifted back to his boyhood days in Bethsaida.
I remember as a young boy, I was always dreaming. I would watch every movement the fishermen made. I remember proudly telling my brother Andrew, when I grow up, I'm going to be the best fisherman in Bethsaida. Why, even in Capernaum. But first, I want to know everything I can about fishing. And someday, I will spend the whole day with my own fishing nets and my own fishing boat. I'll catch lots of fish. And people far and wide will know me well.
Just then, Simon's thoughts were interrupted.
Simon! Simon!
Ah, Andrew, it's about time you got here. The nets are almost dry, and we need your quick fingers to help mend them.
All right, my brother, but I have some exciting news. I have seen Jesus the Messiah. I was with John the Baptist, and he called Jesus the Lamb of God. Later, I spent several hours with Jesus. He truly is the Messiah, I'm sure of it.
Jesus was walking along the shore by the Sea of Galilee. A large crowd of people, men and women, boys and girls, tagged along behind him. Some of the children skipped and ran, while others in the crowd limped and struggled to keep up. And as he walked from place to place, crowds followed him, even when he was exhausted and needed a break. As weary as he was from time to time, compassion drove him to heal their sick.
Throw away your cans.
The time passed quickly as the crowd sat all around on the grass, listening to Jesus teach and watching him heal the sick. A long line of people waited to see the teacher. Parents with children, people on crutches, elderly with frail backs, weak eyes, and all types of sickness. Everyone wanted just a moment with him. They wanted to get as close as they could to the wonderful new teacher. I need you. You need me. We're all and walked towards them.
In the meantime, let us look in on a young girl and four of her friends for an unforgettable moment. They learned of Jesus' gifts, and when they come face to face with him.
Mother, people are still coming.
Is he still in the boat? And what is he doing?
He's speaking to all the people. May I go to hear him?
Is your work done?
No, but if I wait, he may be gone.
If you don't do your chores, I will not have any fish or bread to sell. You may go when you are finished.
Some of my friends say the teacher Jesus is from God, Mother. Is he?
I don't know, Phoebe, but if he is, he would want you to clean the oven.
Phoebe! Phoebe! Good morning, Mother Sarah.
The young girl smiled. She was a good girl. Her father had died, and her mother depended on her to help with the chores. It was Tyra, Eva's cousin and best friend, and Rebecca, Anna, and Elizabeth, and three of her other friends.
Tyra, Rebecca, Anna, Elizabeth, you startled me. Come, let's go and hear the teacher Jesus. We must. Come on. We must hurry.
Here, Phoebe, now take this. Go.
Thank you, Mother. Thank you.
Within moments, the five girls were in the thick of the crowd, elbowing their way to where the boats had pulled ashore. Tyra's Uncle Peter was very excited. The teacher Jesus was on Peter's boat, teaching and preaching. Ever so often he would glance in that direction, and it was after one such glance that his eyes met with those five young girls.
Jesus did not preach dull sermons. He explained what he had to say in parables. Some did not bother to think what the stories meant, but others listened intently and began to understand and do as Jesus said. The four fishermen were busy about their daytime duties. Jesus looked at the crowd that was growing larger by the minute, jostling and pushing to get within earshot, in spite of the efforts of the fishermen to clear a space around him. How eager they were to hear him preach. Then Jesus beckoned to Simon and told him to push out a little further into the water so that he could be seen and heard by the entire crowd.
Listen, the time has come for God's reign to begin. You can be happy if you change your ways and change your mind. God can help you. Our love for God is what we need.
When Jesus had finished teaching, he said to Simon,
Go out further where it is deep and let your nets down for a catch.
Sir, it is no good doing that. We worked hard all night long and didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, we'll try again.
What are they doing?
I don't believe it. They'll never catch anything this close to shore.
Look! The nets are full.
Shortly after Simon and Andrew let their nets down, the fish began to stream into them, flashing and gleaming in the sunshine. Look! The nets are full!
That net is about to burst.
It was then that Simon realized that Andrew was right. Jesus was indeed someone very special. And for the first time in his fishing career, he looked at his boat and nets with little interest. All of a sudden, his mind was on more important things. So he waded ashore with his brother Andrew joining him and fell to his knees before Jesus, ashamed and gasping.
Go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man, not even worthy to be anywhere near you.
Simon, Andrew, do not be afraid. Instead of catching fish, I will show you how to become fishers of men and how to draw them into God's kingdom.
Simon and Andrew immediately pulled their boats ashore and later returned to Jesus. James and John, Simon's partners, were also astonished at the size of the catch. Jesus looked at the other two brothers sitting in a boat with their father Zebedee, and he called out to them to come also.
James, John, come along with me, and I will show you how to fish for the souls of men.
John, do you feel what I feel? Yes, James. All of a sudden, my heartbeat began to quicken.
Come, my brother, we are one. You must leave this boat and go follow Jesus.
At once, they stopped their work and, leaving their father behind, went with Jesus. The fishermen were ready to leave their homes and their jobs if Jesus asked them to, and follow him wherever he might go. After they had pulled their boats onto the shore, the four disciples set off without one backward look. They instinctively felt the Master's divine power and the tenderness of his love. They wanted to follow him and left everything behind.
I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. I am the way. Let not your heart ever be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also, believe in me. I am the way. I go to prepare a place for you, just for you. And when I go, I will come again for you, just for you. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. Believe in me. Believe in me. Believe in me. I am the way.
Jesus made friends with all kinds of people. They did not have to be rich or clever. Jesus recruited more disciples along the way. In addition to the four fishermen of Galilee were Philippi, who spoke Greek, Matthew, the publican, Thomas, the doubter, and Bartholomew, sometimes called Nathaniel. Also, another James, the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, the courageous, Simon, known as the eagle one, a Canaanite, and Judas, the friend who later turned traitor.
When Jesus called the 12 of us to him, Judas, speaking for the 12 of us, said,
Show me your way.
trusted him even more. And he gave us power over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all kinds of sickness and all kinds of disease. We believed in him and said yes to his ministry. He had us to travel everywhere with him, to minister to great multitudes of people, and we dearly loved him.
Phoebe had gathered up some of the fish in the basket, and the girls hurried home to tell Phoebe's mother what great things the teacher had done.
Mother, it was all so exciting. The teacher Jesus chose Uncle Peter to follow him.
And he selected 3 other fishermen to follow him as well. And he ended up with 12 disciples. And he said he would teach them to be fishers of men.
Mother Sarah, what is a disciple? I know they follow the teacher Jesus, but what does that word mean?
The word disciple simply means student. The men that Jesus chose today will be his students. He will teach them to understand the laws of God and other things they need to know as they follow him. He will teach them to teach and to preach and become messengers of God. After a period of training and instruction, Jesus will send them out on their first mission.
Mother, the teacher looked at us. You know how it feels when the morning sun chases the chill off the sea?
Yes, it was like that when Jesus looked at us. We felt warm and happy.
Mother, Uncle Peter let the teacher use his boat. I wish we had something he could use.
She looked around the small room in the tiny house. There wasn't much to see. The jars, cooking pots and baskets, the broom in the corner, and the mats on the floor.
We don't have anything big enough to give.
Phoebe, if the teacher is who they say he is, the size of the gift does not matter. Jesus can do big things with small things.
But the world is so big, and he's just one life. How can one life save everyone? Although that's a big sacrifice. The life of one person seems like a small gift to this big world. As Mother has often told me, no gift is small in Jesus' hands.
What Phoebe's mother said proved to be true. Over a period of time, Jesus turned numerous small gifts into big ones, such as the feeding of the 5,000 with only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, turning water into wine, and numerous healings, just to name a few.
When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples an important question.
Who do you think I am?
You are the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of the living God.
God has blessed you, son, son of Noah, for he has personally revealed this to you. This is not from any human source. Now, you are Peter, a stone, a rock, and upon this rock I shall build my church, and all the powers of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give you the key of the kingdom of heaven.
Your grace and mercy
would soon suffer much pain, that the chief priests and scribes would treat him cruelly in Jerusalem and would even kill him. But on the third day after his burial, he would come back to life. He also instructed us to be faithful and to never be ashamed of him, that we should not live selfishly, but do good to everyone. Then he promised that before we die, some of us would see the Son of Man coming into his kingdom. These teachings were new to us, and we could not understand that Jesus had come into the world to suffer and die. Instead, we had been planning to reign with him in an earthly kingdom. Now, we felt greatly troubled by his words.
About a week later, realizing that their faith needed to be strengthened, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and went up into a high mountain to pray. Alone on the beautiful, swelling summit of the high mountain, the disciples began a moment of spiritual meditation. But 3 disciples, after the long, hard climb up the rough mountain, were weary. Their eyes, heavy with sleep, were unaware that a moment of glory was to be shared with the Lord. So far, above the quiet valley, the tired disciples soon fell asleep. Jesus prayed alone, and God sent angels to comfort him.
Meanwhile, as Jesus was praying, he was transfigured before them into a celestial being. His face shone like the sun, and his clothing became luminous, shimmering with light, far more glorious than anything ever seen on earth. And behold, there suddenly appeared with Jesus 2 mighty prophets, Moses, the great leader and lawgiver of Israel, and Elijah, who had called Israel back from idol worship to serve the true God. They appeared from heaven in glorious splendor and talked with him. They spoke of Jesus, of his death in Jerusalem, to be carried out according to God's great plan for mankind. When the drowsy disciples awakened, they were amazed and awe-stricken to see their master as they had never seen him before in such glory, and to see the 2 great prophets who appeared in brightness standing with him. All confused and not knowing what he was saying, Peter blurted out,
Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah.
But even as he was saying this, a bright golden cloud overshadowed them, and terror gripped them. And there came a great voice out of the cloud, saying,
This is my beloved Son, my chosen one, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him.
It was the voice of God, giving verbal approval to the ministry of his beloved Son.
Instinctively, the awed, terrified disciples threw themselves face down on the ground. Then each in turn felt the gentle, strong hand of Jesus on his shoulder.
Arise, Do not be afraid.
Reassured by Jesus' voice, 3 disciples opened their eyes and peered around. The vision had disappeared. The heavenly voice had gone. Only their dear master was standing close to them, looking his usual self. The next day, when they came down to the mountain, a huge crowd met Jesus. Awe gripped the people as they witnessed the display of the power of God and the healing of the boy who was demon.
How long has he been this way?
Since birth. Since birth.
Spirits, leave this young boy. Dismiss yourself from his body. Rise up.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, as they were exclaiming over all the wonderful things he was doing, Jesus said to his disciples,
Listen and hear what I say. I, the Messiah, am going to be betrayed into the hands of the Jewish leaders and killed. But 3 days later, I will be raised to life again.
But the disciples did not understand what this meant, and they were afraid to ask. Then an argument started among them as to which one of them would be the greatest in the coming kingdom. Jesus, knowing their thoughts, sat down on a rock and told the disciples to gather around him and said,
Do you wish to be the greatest in God's kingdom?
Yes, Master. Yes, of course.
If so, you must learn to change and to be like this child. Your care of others is your measure of your greatness. You will become the greatest in God's kingdom. And anyone who cares for a child like this is truly caring for me. And when you care for me, you are caring for my Father who sent me. I am the light of the world.
Look, Jesus welcomes the children. You bless them.
Come to me. Come, children.
Come
never remained long in one place. Much of his ministry was to the sick and suffering. He cured demoniacs, raised the dead, gave sight to the blind, and rebuked the dumb spirits. His teachings during his journeying were largely set forth in parables. Nothing can compare with the wonderful spiritual illustrations that fell from the Master's lips. The parables of the talents, the lost sheep, the prodigal son, the mustard seed, the rich fool, the hidden treasure, the unmerciful servant, and many others. And there were numerous other miraculous things that Jesus did.
Let the glory of the Lord rise among us. Let the glory of our Lord rise among us. Let the praises of our King, let it rise among us. Let it rise. Everybody sing it. You need the glory. Let the praises of our King, let it rise, let it rise. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ooh, come on, let it rise. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ooh, come on, let it rise. Let the power of our Lord rise among us. Let the power of our Lord rise among us. To the power of your King, let it rise among us. Let it rise. If you need the power, let it rise. Let the praises of our King, let it rise, let it rise. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ooh, come on, let it rise. Whoa, whoa, hey. Ooh, come on, let it rise.
Now the Jewish leaders knew that Jesus had no formal religious training, yet his understanding of the prophecies far surpassed theirs. The words Jesus spoke moved their hearts as they had never before been moved by even the most brilliant doctors of the law. From one to another, the question passed, how has this man such knowledge, having never learned?
As we reflect on God's love, we are reminded that his son Jesus spent most of his time teaching and healing in the fishing towns of the north around Lake Galilee. But when the Jewish festivals drew near, he and his disciples, with hundreds of other pilgrims, made their way to Jerusalem to worship and to celebrate at the temple.
I am Salome, the wife of Zebedee, and one of the women who accompanied Jesus and assisted him and his disciples in caring for their needs. Others included Mary Magdalene, Mary the wife of Cleopas, Joanna, Susanna,
Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, Mary of Bethany, Martha, and other female followers of Jesus. Once, when Jesus was in Jerusalem for a festival, to celebrate the harvest time feast of tabernacles, he walked beside a pool near a sheep market, an ancient pool called Bethesda, meaning house of mercy. It was a typical day. As we walked, Jesus and my fellow disciples and I could see and hear the rumbles and groans of dozens of poor, sick, disabled people who came for healing. They were sitting or stretched out on their mats, or crouched miserably beside the pool. Most showing signs of poverty and filth. Some with twisted limbs, others blind, or with various degrees of paralysis. They lay there, hours at a time, some waiting quietly, others talking to themselves.
At a certain season, the waters of the pool were strangely moved, breaking loose, stirring the pool into waves and eddies. Bethesda's reputation as a place for healing drew multitudes of people. They were all waiting for the spring beneath the pool to bubble up, as it did from time to time. Since they believed that the first person who stepped into the pool where the water moved and swirled would be cured of his affliction, those who lay closest would scream out and claw to get in. So naturally, many people were always disappointed. When Jesus learned of a man who was an invalid, whose condition was long-lasting and hopeless, and who had not walked for 38 years, he went to him and gently asked,
Do you truly wish to be made well?
It's not my fault I've been ill like this for all these years. I can't move an inch. And there's no one to help me into the pool when the waters are troubled. Someone always gets in ahead of me.
Rise up, pick up your sleeping, and go on your way home.
The surprised man felt strength filling his weakened body. To his amazement, he could move. He could walk. At first, it was hard for him to believe that he was really well again. Then he stooped down, rolled up his mat, as Jesus had instructed. When he turned to speak to Jesus, Jesus was gone. Then he set off into the city. How happy he was. He had not gone very far when he saw a group of the religious leaders coming toward him. The Jews believed it was a sin to carry anything on the Sabbath, so one of them put up a warning hand.
Stop! Just what do you think you are doing? You can't carry that sleeping mat. It is illegal to work on the Sabbath. Don't you know you are breaking the law?
I'm only doing what I was told by the one who healed me.
And who was that?
Yes, who told you to do such a thing? To break the law?
I don't know. Jesus. Yes, it was Jesus.
Soon the Jewish leaders found Jesus and accused him harshly of breaking the Sabbath. They believed it was more important to keep the law than for a crippled man to be made well again. But Jesus replied,
My Father is always at his work, to this very day, and I too am working, and must use all the time I have to heal and to save.
This made the Jewish leaders even angrier. Not only had he broken the Sabbath by performing a miracle on that day, but he dared to say that God was his Father, thereby making himself equal to God. The Jewish leaders were now more determined than ever to have him killed.
God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God has smiled on me. He's been good to me. He is the cause of all my joy. He fills me with his love. Everything I need. Ooh, sends it down from up above, singing before. Smiled on me, yeah. Set me free, set me free. He's been mighty good. He's been mighty good. He's been good to me. He's been mighty good. He's been good to me. To me.
Jesus went back to Galilee. The threats of the religious Jews in Jerusalem made it too dangerous to stay in the south. He waited until the festival was halfway through before going back secretly to Jerusalem, staying out of the public eye of the enemies. But there were eyes everywhere, combing the crowd to see if Jesus was among the pilgrims. The religious leaders wanted to find him so that they could have him arrested. But many of the people wanted to listen to Jesus or watch him perform miracles.
Who do you think he is? He must be a good man, that's for sure.
Well, how can he be if all the chief priests and elders are against him? They must know best.
Midway through the festival, Jesus, like the other rabbis, went up to the temple and preached openly. Religious leaders were truly baffled when they heard him.
How is it that this man knows so much, but has never been to our school?
I am not teaching you my own thoughts, but those of God who sent me. If any of you are determined to do God's will, you will most certainly know that what I am saying is true.
Some of the people who lived in Jerusalem said among themselves,
Isn't this the man that they're trying to kill? And there he is, preaching in public, and they say nothing to him. Can it be that our leaders have learned after all that this man is really the Messiah?
How can it be? We know where this man was born. When the Christ comes, he will just appear, and no one will know where he comes from.
I ask you, what do you expect the Messiah to do that this man has not already done?
on the very last day, the climax of the holidays, in full view of the watching crowd, Jesus shouted out to them,
If anyone is thirsty, let them come to me and drink. For Scripture declares that rivers of living water shall flow from the inmost being of anyone who believes in me.
The crowd was divided about Jesus. Some believed he was Messiah, others did not. Some wanted him arrested, but no one touched him.
ye that labor, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly of heart, and ye shall find rest unto your soul. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. Come unto me, all ye that labor, and I will give you rest.
Jesus left the temple, and as he walked down the road to Jerusalem, he observed many beggars lining the narrow streets. Many whined and complained, but one of them, who had been blind since birth, made others smile with his comical remarks and jokes.
Master, why was this man born blind?
Was this a punishment because his parents had sinned?
Yes, Master, or was it because of his own sin?
No, it was neither. His punishment is not his blindness. This was done so that the power and greatness of God could be seen in him. As long as it is day, I must do the work of him who sent me, because night is coming, and all work comes to an end. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world.
Father, open my eyes that I may see to follow thee, Lord. Grant me thy loving peace, and let all dissension cease. Let my faith each day increase, and Master, please open my eyes.
Possibly to help the man build his faith, Jesus bent down, he spit on the ground, and he mixed up a tiny mud plaster, and he smoothed it over the man's sightless eyes. And he said to him,
Go and wash in the pool of Siloam, which is fed by the waters of the living spring.
He could see for the very first time.
I can see! I can see!
Soon, a crowd clustered around him. They peered in his face and they prodded him. They were his neighbors and they asked, "Is this the sightless man that we have known for so long?" Neighbors who knew him and men who had known him as a blind beggar asked the question,
Isn't this the same man who used to sit by the roadside and beg? No, it isn't. It can't be the same man. It surely looks like him.
I am the same man, it's me!
How in the world can you see? What happened?
I don't know. I only know that the man called Jesus made mud and smoothed it over my eyes and told me to wash in the pool of Siloam. The moment I did, I could see.
Well, where is he now?
I don't know.
So his friends took him to the Pharisees, and they made him tell them his story.
The Pharisees interrogated the man and investigated the healing, listening keenly to every detail. They carefully noted the fact that Jesus had healed the man on the Sabbath, so he could not possibly be from God. Some of the leaders condemned Jesus for breaking a rule that they had established and determined that he was a sinner. They even questioned the man's parents. Then they cross-questioned the healed man again and again until he was sick of it.
Whether he is sinner or not, I do not know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. Now look, didn't I tell you once? Why do you need to hear it again? Do you want to be his disciples too?
How dare you! You may be one of this fellow's disciples, but we are those of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses. As for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from.
Now that is remarkable. You do not know where he comes from? I have been blind all my life, yet he opened my eyes. Ever since the world began, no one has ever known of someone opening the eyes of someone born blind. If he was not from God, he could not have done it.
Yeah, he must be. He healed you on the Sabbath.
I don't think a sinner would do such a wonderful thing. He is from God, I tell you.
You despicable wretch! How dare you let your husband get out now!
At this, they threw him out of the synagogue, telling him never to return. But Jesus found the healed man and asked,
Do you believe in the Messiah?
Who is he, sir, so that I may believe in him?
You have already met him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you at this time.
the man fell on his knees in front of Jesus.
Lord, I do believe.
I have come into the world to bring spiritual sight to those who are spiritually blind, and to show those who think they see that they are blind.
Some Pharisees were listening and responded,
Are you saying that we are blind and do not know the truth about God?
If you were blind, you would not be able to see the truth. But you are guilty because you claim to see and know and understand about God. I am the light of the world. I have come into the world to bring spiritual insight and direction to all who follow me. And anyone who follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have eternal life.
understood what Jesus meant. It was not only his eyesight that Jesus had given him. He now had insight to understand and believe who Jesus really was. And that light had brought him freedom as well as a new life.
meet him with palm branches and much acclamation. Some danced in the streets. The happy voices of the people rang out, chanting glad hosannas and crying for victory. Could be heard ringing throughout the city. As Jesus entered Jerusalem with his disciples, the excited crowds shouted,
The Messiah has come! The Messiah is here! He has come! The Messiah has here!
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Caiaphas the high priest had called another meeting with the rulers of the temple for the purpose of plotting how they might arrest Jesus, perhaps by trickery, and have him killed.
My brothers, I have called you here today to discuss a problem that has become more serious than ever. These are indeed troubled times, and we must protect what little freedom we have with Rome at any cost. He accuses us of being hypocrites, of being blind. He denounces and even prophesies our ruin. Now, our temple is a wreck. This man, this Jesus, has gone too far.
That's right. We have tried and failed, but we must put a stop to him now.
Right. We cannot let him continue to bring our customs down.
Right! We are the priests, yes. And it's going to stay that way.
And here's what we'll do. We'll hide priests and prophets and throw in a liar or two. We'll bribe one of his own followers to make certain that they think it's true. We'll accuse, abuse, and misuse them. I swear the others will cringe. When they see their power is shrinking, this Jesus they'll soon condemn. And then we'll march him on down the path. His palace will move, you know.
Oh, no.
But he'll have that man so twisted, he won't know his head from his toe. So come on, hurry, my brother. This man is lingering too long. The sooner he's gone from among us, the sooner they'll sing our song.
That's right.
At the very same time, the rulers were charting their evil plan. Judas Iscariot, a man who was extremely intelligent, aggressive, and once a happy, dedicated disciple, was making his way from Bethany toward Jerusalem. Up the dark, narrow streets of the city he went to the temple. Judas's mind was filled with evil thoughts and full of bitterness and frustration, and he was hungry for money. Now this was a man who allowed his self-centered ambition to lead him into betraying his master and friend. All because he felt let down when Jesus did not conduct his ministry as he thought he should. Judas knew now that Jesus would never fight for his throne, nor for power and success for himself or for his followers.
So Judas went to the chief priest and asked,
What will you give me if I bring Jesus?
30 pieces of silver.
So one of the priests counted out 30 silver coins, gave them to Caiaphas, the Judas.
This man, this Jesus, has followers from Galilee to Jerusalem. You would do us a great service to rid the nation of this false prophet. You must watch for an opportunity, but be careful. This Jesus has many followers, and it would be dangerous if they turned against us. We must take him in the absence of people.
Caiaphas placed the money bag into Judas' eager hand, feeling that this would help him stick to his bargain.
Oh.
Judas walked swiftly back to join his fellow disciples, planning how and when he would do the deed. Now, he was a puppet in the hands of the priest. So the bargain was made. 30 pieces of silver, one of his own disciples, ready to betray the Son of God.
The evening before his arrest, Jesus dined with his disciples in a secluded upper room. Speaking tenderly to them, he said,
Father, the hour has now come. You have been my friend, and been with me so long, and I have loved you. Let us This bread is my body, which is broken for you. As often as you eat, do so in remembrance of me. Take this wine, drink you all of it, for this is my blood, which is shed for the forgiveness of sin. Do this in remembrance of me. One of you sitting here will betray me.
No, no.
Not I, Lord. Lord, which one of us is it? It is he who dipped his hand into the dish with me. I must die just as was prophesied. But woe to the man who betrays me. What you are going to do quickly. Tonight, you will all desert me. For it is written that God will kill the shepherd, and the lambs of the flock shall scatter abroad. But after I have been brought back to life, I will come again to meet you in Galilee. Drive the nails in my head, laugh at me. Where do you stand? Say it isn't me. The day will come and you will see that I'll rise again. There's no power on earth can hold me back. Yes, I'll rise again. And death can't keep me in the ground. Mark my name, my love for you is still the same. And bury me, the day will come, and I'll be free, because I'll rise again. There's no power on earth can hold me back. Yes, I'll rise again. And death can't keep me in the ground.
Not I, Lord.
No, never alive. I died.
A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you. For in my Father's house are many mansions, and I go to prepare a place for you, so that where I am, there you may be also. I am the way, the truth, and the life. The hour has now come. Let us depart.
11 out to the Mount of Olives, to a grove called the Garden of Gethsemane, where he prayed in the quiet of the midnight hour.
I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.
The disciples felt anxious and disturbed. They left the warmth and light room of their master, stepped into the chill of the spring night, and began the steep descent to the valley. It was there, in the Garden of Gethsemane, that the Savior prayed, alone, 3 times as his disciples slept.
Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as thy will, but as thou wilt. Oh, my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done. Thy will be done. Are you still sleeping and resting? Arise. It is time for the Son of Man to be handed over to the power of sinful men. Let us go. Arise. Look. Look. Here is the man who is to betray me.
Judas came and betrayed him with a kiss.
Master. Hail, Master.
Then the temple officers approached with swords and clubs. Jesus did not resist. Instead, he succumbed to his Father's will and went calmly with them in the middle of the night to the house of Caiaphas the high priest to be tried. Death was now his acceptance, made for all mankind. Gripped by panic, despair, and bewilderment, all of his disciples deserted him and fled. the long night of trials. The chief priests and the entire council had been summoned and began interrogating witnesses, hoping to find some evidence against Jesus to put him to death. They could not find any, even though many had been summoned to tell lies about him. Early the next morning, they took Jesus from Caiaphas' house to Pilate. The crowd became angry and shouted, Then Pilate washed his hands of the whole affair. At the crowd's insistence, he handed Jesus over to them to be crucified. Shivering in the cold night air, Peter, one of the chosen 12, and the brother of Andrew, recalled the night of trials after Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane and his broken promise to him.
How could I condone my cowardice when I, who at the Passover meal had vowed to follow Jesus to prison, even to death? I never thought that anyone would make me deny my hope. The trials came, and fears crowded in. A few hours earlier, I had denied my Lord 3 times, just like he said I would. I know he heard my craven lies spoken in the courtyard near Calvary's house. But when the cock crew, Jesus turned, and his eyes met mine. And in his suffering, sorrowing look was boundless love. I was so ashamed that a lump filled my throat. Tears filled my eyes and run down my cheeks. I prayed to God. Even at supper, when he had tried to keep my blustering zeal from faltering, when he said, I pray
for thee, that thy faith fail thee not, and when thou art converted, tend my sheep.
Even in the God, when my blustering zeal could overcome my weakness, he said,
Could you not even watch with me 1 hour?
Over and over, I reminded myself, I broke my promise. I broke my promise. Master, help me to be thy willing shepherd, even though I am unworthy. Still,
never let me go. I lay it all down again to hear you say that I'm your friend. You are my desire. No one else will do. 'Cause nothing else can take your place. Feel the warmth of your embrace. away. Lord, bring me back to you. You're all I want. You're all I've ever needed. You're all I want. Help me know you love me. Help me know you want me.
The Roman soldiers beat Jesus. Then they mockingly bowed to him, yelling. Jesus had committed no crime, yet he had to pay the supreme penalty for the salvation of mankind. Thus, the prophecy of Isaiah would be fulfilled. And the soldiers, finally tired of teasing and tormenting him, they led him out of the city to be crucified. A great crowd of people followed them down the Via Dolorosa on the fateful journey to the crucifixion at Calvary.
It was more than 2,000 years ago that on a hill outside the city of Jerusalem, there stood 3 crosses, a symbol of the tragedy that took place on that spring day.
Two thieves hung on the cross to the left and right of Jesus, as the Lamb of God hung limping from the nails that pierced his hands and feet. The soldiers grumbled.
A mixed crowd stood around, watching the dying men with horror and fascination, tormenting, insulting, and teasing Jesus, using unspeakable indignity. Yet, Jesus prayed.
Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Jesus gazed tenderly at his mother, who looked on helplessly at the foot of his cross, with tears in her eyes, her heart broken.
Woman, behold thy son. Behold thy mother.
It was in the middle of the afternoon when the heat of the sun was at its peak, when a strange and frightening darkness fell upon the entire earth. Struggling to breathe and in a voice filled with pain and despair, Jesus uttered a heart-wrenching cry.
My God! My God! Why have thou forsaken me? I thirst!
Then after 6 agonizing hours on the cross, Jesus, with one last burst of strength, cried out in the darkness.
It's finished! Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit.
Then his head sank forward, and he died. And at that very moment, a supernatural phenomenon occurred. The big veil of the temple was split in two, from top to bottom.
Save yourself!
Then came a shattering earthquake that shook the ground to their feet, and rocks were ripped apart. The Roman centurion was filled with awe and wonder.
crucifixion was different from the rest. The one between two thieves. What did he do? The crowd beat and sprouted him all day long. What sort of a man was he? I'm a hardened centurion, legs to Rome, in charge of the military unit to carry out this execution. But strangely, I feel compassion for this Jew. He was proclaimed the king in mockery. They put a crown on his head, a crown of thorns. He wore that crown in kingly dignity. The crowd itself became harsh and quiet. But now, he's dead. One of my soldiers pierced him in the side with doubt beyond the doubt. I'm glad that task was right behind me. But why do I feel this way? So many times, unmoved, I have watched men die. The earth was trembling. I didn't know what was happening. It was dark. I was awesome. I became very awful. And yet, I realized that this man is no common man that they crucified. Truly, this Jesus was the Son of God.
Whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life.
Now, we know it was on Calvary that Jesus paid sin's burdens, and the fate of man was changed that day. The cross was just a cross until Jesus bore it in agony and pain. A man was just a man until this blessed Savior came and took away our guilt and shame. These are reflections of God's love.
Lift up mine eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He said, He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. The Lord that keepeth thee, He will not slumber nor sleep. Oh, the Lord is thy keeper, the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand, upon thy right hand. Though the sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night, He shall preserve thy soul, even forevermore. All of my help cometh from the Lord.
Won't you take him now as your Lord and Savior, that he might not have died in vain? Won't you just lift up your voices now and say, thank you, Lord? Thank you, Lord. Oh, thank you, Jesus.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there? Were you there? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, Lord, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there?
The day after the crucifixion of Christ, a few friends gathered at the home of Mary, the mother of Jesus, to reflect on their relationship with Jesus.
As you all know, I was once known as Simon, the leper, but no more. Leprosy is a terrible disease, so I was considered unclean, and no one would come near me. I could not even live in town, but no more. Jesus healed my body. Before being healed, I had stooped shoulders, a fingerless hand, a scabbed arm, an infected back draped in rags. A tattered rat hid my face, except for two screaming white eyes. This was all before the Master's healing touch. I shall never forget what Jesus did for me. Where there once was a nub, there are now fingers for my daughter to hold. Where there was once cankerous swords, there's now skin for my wife to stroke. Where there was once long, lonely hours in quarantine, there are now happy times, like the dinner that I had in Jesus' honor with his disciples, a house full of friends, and a table full of food. I shall never forget, for I know what it's like to stare death in his face, Mother. I know what it's like to be misunderstood. And I know what it's like to have no place to call your home. Your son's act of kindness in the right moment in time saved me.
Simon. We have learned that risky love seizes the moment. You took a chance, Simon. You gave Jesus a good meal. And when the priest accused him and the soldiers slapped him, perhaps he remembers what you did, and it strengthened him. Perhaps he remembered Lazarus and my sister Mary's gesture. Perhaps he could even smell the perfume. It is not unlikely that he could. After all, it was imported, concentrated, sweet, and strong enough to scent one's clothes for days. Between the lashes, and as he hugged the Roman coast and braced himself for the next ripping of his back, I wonder if he remembers the oil that soothed his skin.
Mary, you were one of only a few who believed in him. Whenever he spoke of his death, many shrugged, others doubted. But you, Mary, you believed. You believed because he had spoken with the authority. Lazarus, come out, he demanded. And your brother came out. After 4 long days in a stone-sealed grave, your brother came out.
Oh, yes, indeed. I did believe. As I kissed the then warm hand of our just dead brother, I turned and I saw Jesus. And the tears that had streaked down his face, they were dry. He was smiling. Our Savior was smiling. At that moment, I knew in my heart that I would never doubt his word. So, when he spoke of his death, I believed. I won't forget. When I saw Jesus, Simon, the healed leper, my brother Lazarus, the resurrected corpse, and of course, Jesus, the giver of life for both, at dinner one night, I knew then that this was the perfect moment in time. So, I seized that moment in time. I had carried a large bottle of perfume from our house to Simon's house. That bottle of perfume was worth a year's worth of wages. And do you know that that was the only thing of value that I had? It was still the right moment in time. At that moment, I decided to show the giver of such perfect love the same love and reflection of God's love. Simon, you and I seized the perfect opportunity. And rendering great joy often comes from taking seized opportunity.
Yes, Mary. The reward was great for Simon, as well as for you. Simon, you were privileged to give rest to the one sent on earth to show God's love. Your gesture will never be forgotten. And neither will yours, Mary. Do you remember Jesus' promise? Wherever the good news is preached,
throughout the world, what this woman has done will also be told in remembrance of her.
do you remember that? Simon and Mary, may God bless you mightily.
Mother, ladies, I must go now. But let me know if either of you needs anything.
My tears are all spent, Simon. My grief is quiet now.
Deborah, what are you doing here?
Haven't you done enough?
Get out of Mary's house, you she-devil. You smell of treachery.
Wait.
to me. But Mary, she was engaged to Judas, the betrayer of your son. She should not be welcomed in your house.
Have you forgotten that my son prayed to God, forgive them, even as he was dying? Let her come to me. I wish to be alone with Deborah.
Are you sure it's safe?
No.
I do not understand. I'm so confused. I didn't know where else to go except to come to you.
There, my child. You are welcome here with me.
But they hate me.
They are just as frightened and confused as you are.
But they believe that Judas betrayed your son. I cannot. For years, whenever I saw Judas, all he talked about was Jesus. What a change there was to be because of him. Twice, he put off our wedding day because he had to be free to follow him. I almost hated Jesus because he stood in the way of my happiness. But all the wonderful things that Judas told me about him made me love him also.
He was loved by many, but not by all.
And now, they say that Judas has betrayed him. Betrayed the man for whom he sacrificed our wedding. I knew something was wrong. Judas had been telling me something important was going to happen. He had been so full of excitement. And then, last night, he burst into our house. He looked almost as if he was possessed. He stared at me, but he didn't really see me, but some horrible vision. And then, with a terrible groan, he shouted, "No!" I tried to go to him, even though my mother attempted to hold me back. But he pushed us both away and was gone. When I heard that Jesus was arrested and condemned, I knew that that must have been what had made him so wild. Would Judas betray Jesus? No. No one can ever make me believe that.
Deborah. Deborah. I am sorry, but it is true. Those that were there that night saw Judas lead the arresting officers straight to Jesus.
No.
Deborah, it is true. There would be no reason to lie.
But how? Why? I do not understand.
Neither do I. There are so many things I never understood. Nonetheless, I had to accept them.
But I know that Judas would never betray his master. I know it. I will find him. I will find him. He can explain.
Well, we have done what could be done. Joseph of Arimathea went to Pilate and got permission to put Jesus in his own tomb. Now it is the Sabbath, and there's nothing more we can do. What are you doing here?
I am not here for long. I'm going to find Judas so that he can explain this horrible confusion.
I can save you the time. I know exactly where he is.
Tell me. Tell me quickly.
where he is.
No, my friend, no. My friend, don't be cruel.
It's true. He supposedly hanged himself out of despair, horror, guilt, regret, and shame for betraying Jesus, his friend and master, and escaped our just vengeance. By the way, he returned the 30 pieces of silver that they gave him to the chief priest.
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Be kind. She loved him.
And what about us? Did we not believe in him? Who was the best, the greatest who ever lived?
Yes, him who our lover betrayed.
What is all this shouting? This is a house of mourning. Judas is dead. I must go to him.
You cannot go. The Sabbath horn has blown.
I must go.
You will defile yourself. It is the day of the Lord, and it is against the law of God to touch the dead on the Sabbath.
God? I hate to even think of his name. You said that your son was the Son of God, and Judas believed that. God would not let anything happen to his son, but he's dead. And my Judas too. What kind of a God is he that he would kill his own son? How can this be? Deborah does not understand. Jesus was the Son of God. He was. I gave birth to him, but I never understood him. I never understood him completely. Oh, God. Please, help me to understand how this could have happened.
Mary, mother of Jesus, 3 friends and I went to the tomb with spices and perfumes to embalm the master's body, but it was not there. Bewildered and trembling, we fled from the tomb. But he is risen.
What? He's risen.
Grief-stricken, I returned to the tomb, and I was crying. I felt like I must find his body. And then I heard a voice asking me why I was crying. At first, when I glanced over my shoulder, I thought it was the gardener standing there. But then, when I heard his gentle voice say, Mary, I knew it was my beloved master. Fighting back the tears, I threw myself at his feet. He told me to go and tell the others. I ran to tell the disciples the joyous news. I tell you, he's alive again. I told him he's alive again. Jesus has risen from the dead.
Gradually, the reality of her son's resurrection filled her heart, and Mary, though she had not seen him, believed.
It is true. My son is risen. Mary Magdalene, you just confirmed what I already knew in my heart from the break of day. He is risen. My soul is heavy, and my burden is hard. But I know that with my son's victory over death, and with his resurrection from the grave, he has brought not only assurance of God's forgiveness, which is free to all, but also the affirmation of eternal life. Hallelujah!
down his life for you, for me, for all of humanity. The cross was not the end, but a new beginning for all of mankind. 40 days after his resurrection, Jesus appeared to many of his faithful followers, teaching them many things that they had not been able to understand before his death. And just as he had promised, he met the 11 disciples in Galilee on the mountain. And he said to them,
Peace be unto you. Receive ye the Holy Spirit. All power is given unto me in heaven and on earth. Go ye into the world, teach and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. Teach them to obey all the commands that I have given you. And hold this to be true, that I will be with you always, even to the end of the age.
This is my beloved Son.